At the beginning of this year, I went to the Next Level Pinball Museum in Hillsboro, Oregon, which is this really just absolutely massive arcade filled to the brim with, as you might imagine, an absolute ton of pinball machines, but there's also a huge collection of arcade games as well. And if you'd like to see me talk a little bit more in depth about the Pinball Museum, I did a video about it on my racing channel. It's a really neat place, so go check out that video if you'd like to see some more about it. But anyway, that's where I found today's interesting little specimen of a game, Bubbles from 1982. And I mean, look at this thing. Of course it immediately jumped out at me. The character artwork is horrid, rancid. It's awesome. The joystick is his nose, and he's manhandling the buttons. Amazing. Great work, everyone. And it's not like Miss Pac-Man or something like that, where things look kind of on the disturbing side on the cabinet art, and then in the game it's normal. No, he looks like that in the game too. Perhaps the reason I never heard of this game before is that everyone's afraid of it. And that's all just first impressions. It's the game itself that's really stuck in my head and made me want to talk about it. It has a strangely large amount of rules, especially for a game of the time. This is one of the most complicated early arcade games I've ever played, which isn't saying a whole lot, but still. And it's not just that it's complicated, but it's also just simply really odd and surreal, and just kind of a bizarre topic and setting for a game in general. And I've never seen anything like this done before since. Truly a game produced out of the primordial video game soup. At its most basic, it's just one of those games where you eat stuff and grow bigger, like Tasty Planet or Feeding Frenzy as examples that I grew up playing. But in this case, you clean stuff out of the sink to grow bigger. Except I don't know if you're really the one cleaning, because there's also brushes and sponges here, and those kill you unless you have a face. There's also the cleaning lady, and you kill or collect her and take her broom if you have a face. And okay. I love the inclusion of the cleaning lady because it's such a video game idea to have her here like this. This is a video game that is purely interested in being a video game and nothing else. That is the hallmark of early arcade titles, and honestly the thing I love about them the most. It doesn't make any sense, but they did it anyway. And why not? A video game can do anything. It can have a tiny cleaning lady who runs around the sink and gets eaten by a bubble for bonus points. That's fine. So yeah, to be more succinct, your goal in Bubbles is to eat filth in the sink, and you want to avoid scrub brushes and sponges. Eventually you grow bigger and gain a face. When you're that big, you can eat the sponges and kick around the scrub brushes, though you'll shrink again a little bit. The drain is slowly sucking everything in, and you want to avoid going down it, but you'll gain more points for eating stuff near it. Also, a big ol' roach sometimes crawls out of the drain, and if you steal the broom from the cleaning lady, you can kill it. The roach crawling out is preceded by this disconcerting thumping sound, like it's got these massive stomping feet it's crawling up the drain with. It's incredible. The entire soundscape of this game I'd honestly describe as disconcerting. Like, you know the supposed negative emotional aura of Wet Dry World in Mario 64? This entire game has a negative emotional aura. Anyway, the last two things are that there's razor blades, and those always kill you no matter what. And also eventually, when you're big enough, the drain will start glowing green, and then you can enter it. And then the sink fills with like lava, I guess. I don't know why it looks like that. You can also clear the level just by eating everything or having everything fall into the drain. And this is interesting because this functions a lot like Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 or my own game, Pizza Time Explosion, where you can elect to end a level early as a strategic choice. The difference being you gain bonus points for ending early in this game, whereas usually it's a bit of a trade-off. You know, lose multiplier, but move on to a new level where you might score more points overall instead of risking running out the timer for diminishing returns. But there's no time limit in this game, so you really do just kind of always get more points for moving on faster. It's got an interesting flow to it. There's some interesting variety on the levels too, even though they all take place in the same incredibly blue sink and have the same few things going on. There's so many just to be some distinct feeling levels. My favorite is the one that's all ants, which are kind of sparse sparse, and so you grow more slowly. But also the roaches are still approaching, and it ends up feeling pretty tense, and it's really fun. Also, unlike a lot of its contemporaries, the game has quite a large degree of randomness to its layouts. Every time you start, the positions of stuff is randomized. And also, I didn't even see the ant level every time I played. That can be somewhat of a negative aspect, depending on how you play games like this, since you can't do like with Pac-Man, for instance, and perfectly memorize every stage in order to get a high score. But it can also be a positive if you like the variety and being made to think on your feet. The one other wrinkle worth mentioning is that the bubble has some momentum to it. You accelerate up to speed and then don't stop instantly or turn on a dime, which gives the game some interesting character, but also it's kind of tricky, and was almost always my cause of death. I do like the way they made the bubble leave a bit of a trail behind though. It looks good and is kind of impressive for the time, and also illustrates the momentum effect pretty well. It doesn't look particularly special now, and it was probably done with just kind of layering sprites on top of each other, but you don't really see a lot of this type of little flourishes at this point in video game history, so I did want to mention it. But yeah, also it makes aiming the broom a little bit difficult. So even when I had it, I'd still die to the roach half the time. It's so small and you've got to aim it so well, sometimes in a split second. So it's not really a flawless gaming experience, but like, I still love it anyway. This game is absolutely kooky in all the right ways, and in all those weird early video game ways that I adore so much. There's a lot of old arcade games that have odd premises, but that we don't really think about too much since they're already so beloved and so like accepted, like the accepted canon of video game history. We don't interrogate the absurdity quite as much. But when you have an overlooked title like Bubbles or like Bunchmobile, now there's a game I also really need to talk about. You can stop and smell the roses, or the like filth in this case. You know what I mean. If you've got an interest in old arcade games, I absolutely recommend giving this one a play. It's been kind of tragically overlooked over the years. And aside from just sort of the scary bubble phase, I think one of the reasons why maybe this one fell through the cracks is it does have kind of a complex set of rules, you know, like Pac-Man, for instance. You can figure out how to play that literally in just a few seconds watching the title screen. Whereas this game has like a minute long, or maybe even longer, I didn't time it, but it has a very long tutorial that you have to sit and watch if you want to learn how all the mechanics work. And I imagine in an arcade setting, maybe not everybody wanted to just sit there and learn how to play something. People want to just go up to an arcade game and just play it, you know? But nowadays, you don't really have that constraint because, you know, you're not putting money into the machine every time you want to play the game. And that's how I experienced it at the arcade that I found it at, Next Level, like I mentioned. You don't have to pay individually for the game, so I was able to just sit there and figure it out, and I didn't have to worry about having to put more quarters in to learn how the game works, or wasting time just sitting there and looking at it. And if you play it at home, you don't have those constraints either, you can just learn it. So, interestingly enough, I think this game benefits from being played outside of its original context. And also, it has had some re-releases over the years, but the most recent one was in like 2012, and it was always kind of like tacked on. It was never a headlining game in any collection, so that's why I wanted to take some time and share about it today. Also, speaking of those collections, I noticed Digital Eclipse was behind those collections, and I've only actually pretty recently become aware of them, like with Atari 50 and the recent Rayman collection, and upcoming Toy Story and Barbie collections. And dang, are they killing it lately. And I also had no idea how long they'd been around doing this kind of stuff. So shoutouts to Digital Eclipse. The Rayman collection kind of sucked, but the only real reason for that was the music being replaced. But I'm putting the blame on Ubisoft for that one. Presentation and quality otherwise was still great. But anyway, yeah, that's Bubbles. I wanted to give this weird little game some love, and I hope you go check it out as well. It's worth your time, I think, as long as you can stomach looking at that face. Anyway, I'm gonna be on vacation soon. In fact, I might already be when you see this, but I have quite a few more videos planned for this channel, and you should start seeing those pop up in a couple weeks when I'm back. And I might even have one ready before then too. So, as for now, I'll see you again soon.